Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that is truly more important than ever: first aid for your mental health. Think of it as a toolkit of skills that can empower every single one of us to make a real, honest-to-goodness difference in someone's life. I mean, really think about it for a second. If your friend fell and scraped their knee, or they felt all feverish, you'd pretty much know what to do, right? Grab a bandage, get them some water, maybe suggest they see a doctor. But what happens when the injury isn't something you can see? What do you do when a friend just seems off, withdrawn, or just not themselves? Well, that's where this all comes in. Just like you'd have a physical first aid kit, having a mental health first aid kit, which is really just a set of skills and knowledge, is absolutely crucial. Knowing these first steps can literally be the bridge that connects someone who's struggling in silence to the help they really need. So let's start with the big question. Why? Why is this knowledge so vital, especially right now? Well, as you're about to see, the need for it is probably way bigger than you think. A major study by India's National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, or NIMHANS, found something that's, well, it's pretty staggering. 1 in every 20 people might be diagnosed with a mental disorder at some point in their life. That's one person in your average classroom, one person on your work team, probably one person in your extended family. It's everywhere. But here's the problem. Even though so many people need help, there are these huge hurdles in the way. And the biggest one? It's stigma. We often fear what we don't understand, and that can lead to blaming people, to seeing their illness as some kind of character flaw, or even worrying more about what other people think than someone's actual well-being. And because of all this confusion, a lot of people just don't know how to help, or worse, they end up listening to advice that isn't based in any real science. And this, right here, is the most important thing to get straight. Mental illness is never, ever a personal weakness. It's a health issue. It's caused by a super complex mix of genetics and your environment and brain chemistry. Blaming someone for their mental illness is like blaming them for getting the flu. It makes no sense and it doesn't help. What does help is support and understanding. Okay, so we've talked about the problem, but the good news is there's a really clear, practical solution that honestly anyone can learn. So let's get into the toolkit itself. It's called the ALGE Action Plan. First, let's be super clear on what we mean by mental health first aid, or MHFA. It's that initial help you offer someone who's having a tough time. And listen, you're not trying to be their therapist. Think of yourself as the first responder. You're there to provide support until they can get professional help or until the immediate crisis is over. That's your role. And here is exactly how you do it. The whole action plan is wrapped up in this one easy-to-remember word: ALGE. That's ALGE. It's a simple 5-step guide that is surprisingly effective. So let's break it down using a quick story. So let's meet Ali. He's the team captain, a popular, outgoing guy. But lately, his friends have noticed he's been different. This is the very first step. A is for approach, assess, and assist. They saw something was wrong, and they made that vital decision to actually approach him instead of just ignoring it. Next up is L for listen non-judgmentally. And honestly, this step is so powerful. His friends didn't jump in trying to solve his problems or give him a bunch of advice. They just listened. They created a safe space where he could share what he was going through without being afraid of criticism. Then we have G and the first E: give support and information and encourage appropriate professional help. So they didn't just listen. They also reassured him. And this is the critical part. They suggested he see the college counselor. They even offered to go with him. That simple act of support can be a total game changer. This quote just perfectly sums up your role. You are not the destination. You are the bridge. Your job is to connect the person you care about with the professional help they need. That right there is the heart and soul of mental health first aid. All right, so we've got the ALGE framework down. Now let's see how we can actually apply it to one of the most common challenges people face: depression. First off, it is so important to know the difference between just feeling sad and what we call depressive thinking. See, sadness is usually tied to a specific thing, like I'm upset that I failed the test. But depression, it's more like this persistent, all-encompassing pattern. It's not just I failed, it's I am a failure and nothing is ever going to get better. Do you see that theme of worthlessness and hopelessness? That's the key difference. So those thinking patterns, they often lead to real changes in how someone acts. You might see a friend start to pull away from everyone, or maybe their grades or their work starts to slip. Sometimes they might get unusually irritable, or they just stop caring about things they used to love. These are the red flags. These are the signs that it's time to use that first step of algae and approach them. Okay, let's pivot to another really common challenge. How do these same first aid principles work for someone who's dealing with anxiety? This image is it's a perfect way to picture it. Anxiety isn't just about feeling stressed before a big presentation. An anxiety disorder can feel like this constant, overwhelming tangle of worries and fears that you just can't get a handle on, and it really starts to mess with your daily life. And anxiety tends to show up in three key ways. So psychologically, you might have a mind that's racing, or you just can't concentrate. Physically, it could be a pounding heart or feeling short of breath. And then behaviorally, it can make people avoid certain situations or feel this really strong urge to just escape. Recognizing these signs is all part of that first A in LG, assessing what's going on. Now let's shift gears to a very modern and very real challenge that we all face: behavioral addictions, especially the ones tied to our screens. So how do you know if using the internet is becoming a real problem for you or maybe for a friend? Well, you can use this simple self-check. It's based on the 4 C's: craving, control, compulsion, and consequence. Just ask yourself these questions. And if you're answering yes to 3 or more of them, it might be something to pay attention to. And this is not just some theoretical problem. There's a clinic in Bengaluru called SHUT. It stands for Service for Healthy Use of Technology. And their very first case was a 26-year-old man. He wasn't able to cope with the pressures of real life, so he just escaped into Netflix, watching it for most of the day. It just goes to show how this kind of excessive use can be a way of avoiding deeper issues. And that really brings us to a fundamental truth about getting better. This quote says it so well. Healing is not automatic. It's a journey that needs to be trodden. It's an active process. It's not passive. But the most important part of that is that the journey is possible. So here's what it all boils down to. You have the tools now. You get the need for this. And you have the algae roadmap. The question really isn't, what can I do anymore? The question is, who could I be the difference for? Think about that person. Your first step could change their entire journey.